That's employees.
That's correct.
I assume that would be this gentleman.
I actually am not sure.
Would that be you?
No.
Were you there June 24th?
Yes, I am the doorman.
Okay. Mr. Hamilton wasn't there. He really doesn't know what happened, but he denies, based upon, I assume, what this gentleman says, that you were, in fact, injured on that date. He doesn't deny that there was some sort of an altercation, but he says that you were not injured. What time of the evening did this incident occur?
It was around 10:30.
Who were you there with?
I was with two of my friends from college.
Either one of them here?
No, they actually did not witness the incident. They were inside using the restroom.
Why were you outside on line?
I was waiting at the front of the line about to have my ID checked, and they were on their way back when this all went down.
Tell me what happened, Miss Giovanni.
I was about to have my ID checked. The next thing I remember is waking up face down with my face in the concrete. The gentleman who was standing behind me in line, who I now know to be Eric Crisp, he was not a friend of mine ahead of time. He told me that, well, he was very concerned.
That's all you remember?
Right.
You were on line. The next thing you know, you were on the ground, face down.
Yes.
You were the witness?
Yes.
Just stand up, please, sir. Your last name is?
Crisp, C-R-I-S-P.
Mr. Crisp, you were on line, right behind her?
I was in line with her, yes.
Tell me what you observed.
Well, I was actually, I was pretty much next to her. Saw some commotion going on inside the bar. I'm not sure exactly if it was a bartender or not, but from what testimony was given to me, gentleman was picked up. I saw him coming at me.
I just want you
I saw him coming at me.
You saw.
Okay, I saw two men coming at me, one being picked up. I dodged out of the way. I heard a thud, and I looked back, and I saw Angie on the ground.
You didn't know her before that evening?
No, not at all.
Did you subsequently ascertain who the people were?
I did ask the doorman who that was.
This gentleman.
I'm not exactly sure if that was him or not.
Stand
I know he was.
Sir. Your last name is?
Garcia.
Mr. Garcia, who were the people involved in the altercation on the 24th of June?
There was a bartender.
Bartender's name was?
Carlson.
And what did you see Mr. Carlson do?
He was escorting a customer out of the bar that was
How was he
stealing.
escorting him out?
He had him by the arms and was forcing him out because he had stole a bottle, throwing him out.
So he was throwing him out?
Yes.
And what did you observe?
I heard the
Look
commotion.
at me.
I had heard the commotion, and I turned around and let the rope down to allow him to be thrown out, and he in turn bumped into the plaintiff, and she
As he
fell
was
back.
throwing out this patron?
Yes. And she fell back into the line, never fell onto the ground.
Where did you see her, Mr. Crisp?
On the ground.
I was standing in front of her, so she would have fallen into me because it's a real tight quarters. It's very tight quarters. And then there was a long line maybe of 50, 60 people.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Did you ever meet Mr. Crisp before?
No, ma'am.
Has he ever been to the bar before?
Not that I know of.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Crisp?
I work as a senior finance analyst for a law firm.
How long have you worked for the law firm?
Approximately a year.
Graduate from college?
I did.
Professional school?
Yes, Cal State Fullerton.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
You think of any reason why Mr. Crisp, who is unknown to the plaintiff, would not only testify falsely, sir, but take time to come to court to testify on her behalf, that he turned around and saw her on the ground, Mr. Garcia? I can understand why you might say she never fell on the ground.
Why?
Why?
Yeah,
because
why?
he's your employee, Mr. Hamilton. That's why.
I asked him
I've
to
been there
tell
for
me,
8 years. I've never had a
we
problem.
have insurance for...
Mr. Hamilton,
Yes.
then I will ask you the question, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Crisp, let me
Well,
back
he's a
up.
lawyer. Maybe
Let me
he's trying
back
to drum up business.
Let me back up a second. Well, that's the most ridiculous thing. If you're going to be a wise guy, Mr. Hamilton, I'm going to fight for the plaintiff and throw you out. So don't be a wise guy. Now, it's my job, and I've been doing it for a very long time, to test the veracity of people's statements, whether or not they are telling me the truth. And there's no question that Mr. Crisp is telling me the truth as far as these facts, that prior to June 24th, 2006, he was unknown to the plaintiff, and she unknown to him. Has she retained your law firm to sue anyone?
Not at all. We're not personal injury.
He has no particular... Put your hand down, unless you want to modify your statement.
Yes, I do.
Fine. Then modify your statement, Mr. Garcia.
When she fell back into the crowd, the people that frequent the bar, young, 21, 22 years old, were saying, oh, sue the bar, sue the bar. Everybody thinks that that's funny. Oh, sue the bar.
And
that's what everybody was saying, and I had to calm them down.
I'm not talking about that, Mr. Garcia. I'm talking about her being on the ground.
Okay. She wasn't on the ground, but
Oh, I think she was. I absolutely think she was.
there would be no way for her to fall onto the ground because everyone was so close.
I can't think of a reason why Mr. Crisp would lie to me. I can't think of a reason.
I've been there 8 years. I run a very, very tight ship.
Well, then you,
I'm very infamous
then
for
you,
being-
Mr. Garcia,
for
have
being
an
abrupt with
absolute
people.
reason to tell me that you didn't see her on the ground.
I saw her fall back, but not
Fine.
face
Fine.
down on the ground.
You saw her fall back.
Into a crowd
and
of people.
I'm speaking, and she fell back as a result of being pushed, not intentionally, I assume, but pushed by the actions of Mr. Hamilton's employee in ejecting a patron.
Yes.
Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, that would.
May I see the medical records you have, please?
Would it be Mr. Hamilton's employees or Malarkey's Irish Pub's employees?
It doesn't make any difference, sir.
Does it?
No.
I mean, she's suing me personally. I am an officer of the corporation. It's owned by a corporation.
I actually put both on
Just
the
a second.
original case.
Did you accept service? Did you accept service, Mr. Hamilton?
I was never personally served. Something was mailed to me.
And
Is
you're
that
here.
accepting?
And you're here.
Yes, I am here.
And you did not have an attorney put in an answer to the court indicating that the court had no jurisdiction because the corporation wasn't served.
Well, she probably just would have refiled it again, so why not get it over
Then
with?
why
Your Honor,
raise
this
it
gentleman
now?
actually said-
Then why raise it now?
Because
Good.
as additional complaint is Malarkey's, I just want to make sure that Bill Hamilton isn't responsible, because I am not Malarkey's, I'm an individual.
You are here, sir, neither you nor an attorney on behalf of a company in which I assume you are the primary shareholder?
No, that's not correct.
Who is?
My father,
How old is he?
83.
When was the last time he was in the business?
He retired about 8 years ago.
Good. I wonder how on the 24th of June, Mr. Garcia, and I'm not talking about her complaint of a head contusion, but that the examining emergency room doctor found that she had facial abrasions.
I invited her into the bar after it happened.
Yes.
To buy her a drink, and she walked in and came back out a few minutes later.
Yes.
She could have gone to another bar.
Mr.
How would I
Garcia
know that?
invited me in to offer me free drinks for the night, I believe is a way to buy me off.
No, it's not a way to buy you off.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It was the patron we escorted out that hit Angie.
Mr. Hamilton, that's like saying that it was the bullet that hit
Right,
the
I'm not-
victim,
Okay.
not the gun that caused the bullet to hit the victim.
And later today,
And how old was he when they started to live together?
Probably 19.
And she was?
17.
Don't do anything so stupid again, will you please?
Oh, God, I know.
Angelina Giovannini says bar manager Bill Hamilton should pay for her medical bills. Angelina says one of Bill's employees knocked her to the ground during a scuffle with a patron.
Yes, sir.
I was the one that actually recommended that Angie's friends take her to the emergency room because of the thud that I heard on the ground resulting from that.
And the fact
it
that
it was not a simple push. It was more of a tackle, get a guy out of a bar very inappropriately in my eyes. I couldn't believe it myself.
There was a 2.2 by 2 centimeter contusion on the front of her forehead, Mr. Hamilton, according to the emergency room doctor, is relayed in the diagram from the emergency room.
That was never submitted to me.
Well, I'm going to show it to you, sir.
No, I'll believe you. All I'm saying is that was never submitted to me.
Well, but I'm showing this to you. Don't you want to see it?
Not really. If you say it's there, it's there.
Hospital room technicians finds a hematoma to the forehead. Hematoma noted on the upper right forehead. What happened to the bartender?
He went inside and continued working.
Is he still there?
Yes.
Why isn't he here today? He's a witness under your control, Mr. Hamilton. Why isn't he here today?
Because Richard, I asked him to come.
Why didn't you have both of them come? I'm not speaking to you.
I thought one person would be adequate.
Well, but you brought then the person who, A, was not directly involved with the confrontation, and B, whose responsibility it was at the door to maintain order. Isn't that your job, sir?
That is correct.
How many people on the line?
50 to 60.
And there was a commotion inside the bar.
Yes.
Is that correct? So your primary responsibility is to maintain order.
Yes.
Right. So I would have, Mr. Hamilton, have thought that you would have brought the person whose primary focus was what was going on at that very moment in ejecting someone and who had direct physical contact with the plaintiff, not somebody whose direction was 50 or 60 people standing on the line, a commotion inside the bar, and then something that happened outside of the bar. It's just interesting to me.
No, Richard works at the door. The door is a very small area. There may be 50 people in line, but he's not walking down the line normally. From my understanding, it was the patron we escorted out that hit Angie.
In the process of escorting him.
Well, you know, that's like saying,
Well, I'm not
Mr.
saying
Hamilton, Mr. Hamilton, that's like saying that it was the bullet that hit the victim, not the gun that caused the bullet to hit the victim. This, you know, your bartender was ejecting, according to your witness, was ejecting by holding on to both arms, throwing someone out of the bar for
But I would
stealing.
assume Richard would have had a better look at what happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't have assumed anything. I would have brought them both. Okay, you have medical bills?
Yes.
I'd like to see them. Did you have insurance?
At the time, my insurance was a little complicated. I was starting a new job, so...
Did your insurance cover this?
The insurance covered a small portion of it. I have the credit card statement for what I covered.
Well, you can tell me. How much did you cover?
$1,364.17. And since it went on my credit card, I also have copies of all the finance charges. Included in that is a collections notice that I received because Mr. Hamilton had accepted responsibility for the incident and explained to me that because of renovations he had just done to his bar, that he would be sending it to his insurance and taking care of it. At that time, I faxed all of this information to him, including the bills, and was under the impression that was in January.
January of 2007?
Yes, when I finally got a hold of him. It took a while to get through the bar to actually get his cell phone number.
Did you receive the faxed information from her, sir?
January. Well, I received a letter from her January 9th.
Did you receive the faxed information, her bills, etc.?
Yes, I did.
What did you do with them?
I have a file where I put them in.
You didn't send them to your insurance company?
No, I didn't.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. You didn't handle this well, Mr. Hamilton. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bodies are excused. You may step out.
When I got the medical bills was the first time I tried to contact him.
I was surprised it took her 6 months.
Everyone at the bar wouldn't let me through to him, basically.
When she sent the letter, I wasn't available.
Until I finally got his cell phone number and was able to badger him enough to get him to talk to me.
I'm tired of getting taken advantage of every time somebody stubs a toe.
I originally only asked for compensation for my medical bills.
They want to sue a big company or a little company or sue somebody.
The rest is for his negligence.
All parties in the matter of Mentier versus Mentier, step forward, please.
22-year-old Catherine Mentier is suing her mother-in-law, Melissa Mentier, for unpaid loans to buy a dress and to pay for a plane ticket to New York.
Miss Mentier, this is your mother-in-law.
Yes, that is correct.
And according to your complaint, you made a series of loans to her?
Yes.
She hasn't paid you back.
That is correct.
Your mother-in-law, she says, well, you're her daughter-in-law, so you're supposed to help her out. And then she said that you had her son arrested for domestic violence, so she's not paying you back any money.
Oh, okay.
She's wrong.
Right.
When did you have her son arrested?
I didn't have her son arrested.
Was he arrested?
He was arrested. I did not have him arrested.
Was there a domestic violence incident?
No. No domestic violence actually occurred, though that was the allegation.
Well, tell me why she thinks she would blame you for having him arrested.
Because anytime anything happens with her son, it's my fault.
Where's her son?
Her son is right here.
That would be you?
Yes, so in her eyes, so he couldn't do anything wrong.
He doesn't look like an angel.
He's my angel.
Maybe your angel, but he doesn't look like an angel. How many times have you been arrested? Stand up when you talk to me.
That would be my first time being arrested.
For what?
I was arrested for the domestic violence, but...
Domestic violence on whom?
My wife, I guess.
Well, what happened, sir?
We got into an argument, and I don't know, some issues just came up, and I got a claim filed against me, and I ended up getting pulled over at McDonald's or something like that, and they pulled up a warrant that I actually had outstanding.
A warrant for what?
The domestic violence charge that I was given from Pataskala.
And you were quickly let go?
Yeah, I stayed one night in county and was released.
Are you living together now?
Yes.
Who do you work for?
I worked for her father as a chimney sweep. My previous job before that was at Circle K, but I actually quit that so I could stay home and take care of the children.
Whose children?
Her children, but yeah.
How many children do you have?
2.
How old are they?
1.5 and 6.
6-year-old is your child?
No, neither of them are mine.
I didn't ask you anything. Parents don't borrow from children. Children take, parents give. Who do you work for?
I don't. I'm on disability.
What's the nature of your disability?
Mental.
How long have you been receiving disability?
About 10 years.
How many children do you have?
2.
How old are they?
18 and 5.
Well, your mental disability didn't impair you from having another child. Do you take medication for your disability?
Yes, I do.
Were you taking medication when your 5-year-old was born?
Yes, I was.
Is your 5-year-old normal?
Yes, he is.
Where is his father?
At work right now, I would assume. He's in the picture.
Does he live with you?
No.
Does he pay support?
Yes, he does.
How much money did you take from your daughter-in-law?
Well, I don't really feel that I owe her anything.
I didn't ask you what you feel. I'm not interested in what you feel. People who work for disability care about what you feel, Miss Mintier. I do not. I asked you how much money you took from your daughter-in-law.
I didn't take anything. She gave it to me.
One gives and one takes. Do you understand?
She assisted me with my rent.
I didn't ask you that.
$500 for my rent.
Good. That's one of the things that you took from her. $500 for your rent. What else did you take from her?
She purchased me a dress for the wedding.
How much was that?
It was actually a number of things that we bought at the bridal store that we did settle on the amount of $200 that she would pay me back.
When did you settle on the amount at the bridal store?
When we'd made the purchase.
Is that what she spent on her dress?
It was actually over that. As I'm sure she'll tell you, my dog ate a pair of her shoes one time, so the bill was actually more than $200, but to compensate for that, we settled on the amount of $200.
What else did you give her?
The airfare. She wanted to travel to see a friend, so
What kind of friend?
One of her friends, I guess, from New York.
Male or female?
Oh, a male.
Why did you go to New York to visit a friend?
To get away.
Where was your 5-year-old?
He was at home.
With whom?
With my son. Was watching him.
Son works.
At the time, he was not. That's one of the times he was living with me, back and forth between her house and mine.
How much was the airfare?
$263, I think.
So what you're telling me is your daughter-in-law, from whom your son was estranged, they weren't even living together, gave you money so that you could go and visit a boyfriend in New York? Is that what you're telling me? Just a second. I want to understand this. You said your son was estranged from his wife because he was living with you, so he was there to take care of your 5-year-old. And your daughter-in-law, from whom your son was estranged, I assume for good reason, according to you, gave you as a gift money so that you could go and have a good time in New York.
It was their fault I was stressed.
No, madam. It's your fault that you're stressed.
She took my son from me. Thing.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she does have a mental disability. I'm not sure. How old are you?
18.
And how old are you?
22.
Your mother has a personality disorder. I don't know about a mental disability that prevents her from working. She can certainly travel to see a boyfriend. She can certainly make a baby and take care of a baby. So as far as mental disability is concerned, I think the only people who have a disability are the people who decided that she deserves disability. That's not what I'm here to make a decision about. You have to make a judgment. You got married?
Yes.
You plan on staying married?
Yes.
Good. First of all, this is a court. It's not a basketball court. So when you come to court, you look like an adult. You don't dress like a baby. Do you understand?
Yes.
You're dressing like a baby to come to court.
I apologize.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to wear in your wardrobe?
Yes, I do. I just...
Well, then you should have worn it. You owe your daughter-in-law $963. Pay it!
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She was really hurt. She didn't give me a chance to explain anything.
Well, I'm just glad that she realized that the money was rightfully owed to me, and, I mean, she made the right decision.
I am impartial in the case, but I knew she was in the wrong.
He's too young. They're too young. She has 2 kids, period.
Maybe she's not good enough for her son.
He's my baby.
My mom has always been overbearing and over-controlling.
I don't see him as much. He doesn't get to come around as much.
It goes back and forth. You know, one minute she wants to be nice about it, the next minute, you know, she wants to stab us in the back.
I'm just not happy.
I'm just done with it.
I want my son back.
All parties in the matter of Zuloff versus Steck. Step forward, please.
Jacqueline Zuloff is suing her mom, Shelley Steck, for the return of a '97 Pontiac Sunfire. Shelley says the car is titled in her name.
Ms. Zuloff, this is your mom.
Yes, ma'am.
According to your complaint, you believe that your mom conned you out of a car.
Yes, ma'am.
Your mother says that she did, in fact, purchase it from you and paid you for it. Tell me about the car. When did you buy it?
I purchased the car on February 9th, 2006.
How much did you pay for it?
I paid $400 for the car.
Who did you purchase it from?
It was a friend of my uncle's.
What kind of car was it?
It's a '97 Pontiac Sunfire.
Okay. Now I'll hear your story.
Okay. On July 31st, 2006, I went into labor with my daughter.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
Are you married?
No.
Who do you live with?
My father.
Go ahead.
We had contacted my mother while we were at the hospital. Her engine had blown up in her car. When she arrived at the hospital, she asked to borrow my car because that way she could come back when I actually went into labor.
And you said, yes, you can borrow my car.
Yes, I did. The agreement was 2 weeks. After my mother had borrowed the car, after the 2 weeks, we had talked again, and at the time, I wasn't working.
What month was this?
This was probably around the end of October, beginning of November.
So she's had the car now August, September, and October for
Yes,
3 months. So far, is that correct that you were using your daughter's car for 3 months?
August, September, and 2 weeks of October.
Okay.
So she told me there was a couple things wrong with the car. Since I wasn't working, I couldn't afford to pay for it. And the insurance was $152 in my name. So she told me that if I signed the title and we put it in both of our names, that she could get cheaper insurance. She would, you know, pay for it and give it back to me since I couldn't work and I had my daughter.
Okay. So
I went ahead, I signed the back of the title, and her boyfriend, George, he came to my house and picked up the title, and my boyfriend's mother had gone to bingo and met up with my mom, and that's when my mom had told her that I had sold her the car and that she wasn't giving it back.
Did she ever give you any money for the car?
No, ma'am.
Who paid for the insurance the 3 months that your mother had the car from August, September, and October?
My mom paid, but I had to pay for 1 month because I got a cancellation notice in the mail saying...
Which month?
I believe it was September.
Did she pay you back for September's?
No.
How many months of insurance did you pay for, Miss Steck?
Did I pay for it? 2.
Okay. Now I'll hear your story.
Okay. July 31st, my daughter went into labor. I was on my way to work when I got the phone call. A friend had picked me up to take me to work. She had called me and said she was in labor. My boyfriend had met me at the hospital where she was having the baby. I had asked if I could borrow the car so that I could come back and see her and the baby. I came back at 2 o'clock in the morning. I asked if I could borrow the car for a little while longer, and she said yes. So I took the car home. I let her know, I believe it was about 2.5, 3 weeks later, that I needed to keep the car a little longer.
And you had been driving the car?
Correct.
Keep going.
Okay. In September, I had noticed that Jacqueline's tags had expired on her car. I called Jackie, and I said, well, Jackie, you are going to have to get this car re-inspected because it is past the 60 days to put tags on the car. I said, there's a couple of things that you're probably going to have to fix, because it's been since April that she had the car inspected. And she says, well, I can't afford to keep the car on the road with the insurance. I can't afford to get the car re-inspected and get it fixed. And I said, well, Jackie, I still need a car. I said, I'll buy the car from you and give you the $400 that you paid for the car since you don't want it anyway. And she was like, that's fine. I got a phone call from her father. Her father, get along with, wants to know when I'm going to give her back the car.
Show me proof that you paid her for the car.
It was my daughter.
Show me proof that you paid her for the car.
I don't have any. So her father called me and said that, you know, I need to give her car back. I said she's welcome to come and get the car anytime that she wants. Then I would talk to Jackie. Jackie's like, no, I don't want the car.
Why didn't you just, listen, you're driving her car now for 3 months. If you had to go and rent a car, you couldn't have done that for less than $200 a month. That's clear. So why didn't you just say to your daughter, because I've been using your car for 2.5 months, and because it's not a new car, and if it needs things, could be because of the way I drove it, the mileage I put on the car, I'll have it fixed, I'll have it inspected, I'll take care of it for you, honey. Thanks for letting me use it for the last 3 months.
It wasn't 3 months, Your Honor. It was only for a month and a half.
No, wrong. August, that's when you took it. September, and according to you, 2 weeks into October. That's 3 months. Because when you lease a car, if you only use it for 2 weeks, you pay for the whole month, right? That's what a mother does. Mother doesn't say, oh, this is a real good opportunity for me to get myself a good car.
That's not what I did.
That's exactly what you did. Did you say to your daughter, listen, you did me a favor, I'll take care of getting the car inspected, tagged. Did you say that to her?
No,
That's
I did
what
not.
a mother does. That's what a mother does. Where's the car title?
The one in my name or the one in hers?
The one in your name. Bird, figure out where she signs that title back to her daughter.
Where it says seller.
Yeah, signature of seller up here. Sign and print your name.
give the title to the plaintiff, please, Bird? Go pick up your car, madam. Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
My daughter did not want the car. Her father had given her a lot of problems about letting me have the car.
I do want the car. I need the car. I have a daughter I have to support.
Her father was going to throw her out of the house if she did sell me the car.
My mother doesn't know what she's talking about. I filed papers before my father said that, any of that.
I couldn't believe that she was taking me to court.
My mom has a way of manipulating people.
I guess lying wins.
She's really never been there for me my whole life, and I've always wanted her to be there.
She's still my daughter.
I hope that I can
Honey, you were sort of helping him out at a time that he needed to be helped out financially. He's counterclaiming because he says that in a fit of rage, you damaged his car, his clothes, and he also believes that you harassed him. That's his counterclaim. So tell me when you met him.
I met him in August of last year.
And when did you lend him the money?
Of last year.
Tell me about it.
John had lost his job and he couldn't pay his rent.
When did he lose the job?
November.
What kind of job did you have, Mr. Bambino?
Car salesman, ma'am.
How long did you have that job with that company?
7 months.
Before that, where did you work?
As a correction officer for the state of New Jersey.
How long were you working there?
15 years.
Go ahead.
In December, I was coming into some money through a lawsuit, and I had extra money, and, you know, he asked me to lend him his rent money for the month of December, and that's what it was. I lent him the money.
How much was it?
It was $1,200.
$1,200 for rent. Go ahead.
And one bill is $452.07.
What was that for?
A home entertainment system.
Who bought a home entertainment
that
system?
I bought for him, that he was supposed to pay me back for.
No. Miss Smoot, listen to me carefully. If somebody doesn't have money to pay his own rent, then you don't buy him a home entertainment center and expect him to pay you back. You're not a baby, right?
Right, Your Honor.
What else?
Cable bill, $100. I have a check that he wrote, that I gave him a blank check to take to the doctors that has his name in the memo for $80.
Did she give you a blank check to pay a doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
What else?
A gas bill for $100 in December.
$100 even?
Well, it was, his gas bill is way more than that, but I only paid $100 on it.
Go ahead.
2 checks for food, one for $87.40 and one for $42.71.
Made out to whom?
To Acme.
Did you use those 2 checks?
No, I wrote them.
He doesn't know you for that.
Okay.
What else?
That's it.
Okay, Mr. Bambino. Ball is in your court, sir. Where are you working now?
Chevrolet 73.
So you're back to work?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So Ms. Smoot says that you said, if you pay my rent, as soon as I get a job, I'll pay you back. You say that's not true. Tell me what happened, Mr. Bambino. By the way, how old are you, sir?
43.
Have you been married?
Yes, ma'am.
You have children?
I have 2 daughters.
How old are they?
17 and 24.
When did you last live with them?
I have custody of my younger. Actually, I've had custody of both since my divorce in '98. I have custody of my youngest now.
So how are you supporting the children?
My mother helps me out, but I mean, I just ran into a tough time between, like, let's say the Monday before Thanksgiving, and I started my new job January 5th.
Right.
So it was approximately 6 weeks.
So what you're telling me is your mother helps you out.
She helped me out in that particular time frame, yes, in the beginning of January.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
I met Tina, as she said, in the middle of August. We started the date.
Would you try looking at me
sorry, yes,
rather than
ma'am,
keeping
sure.
your eyes closed? It's disrespectful.
I'm sorry. I met her in the middle of August at a club over in Philadelphia. Approximately 2 weeks later, she accused me of staring at a woman on the track. She told me to get in her Jeep. She started to give me a ride, which was the ride from hell. She just started driving down the interstate, doing approximately 70, 75 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic.
But after that, you took money from her.
No, well, ma'am, it's...
Listen to me. After that, you took money from her, so I'm not interested in a ride
I didn't
from
take
hell.
money.
Yes, you did.
She gave me the money, ma'am.
That's not what I said. I said you took money from her.
Yes.
After the ride from hell, which would have put me in a different county from somebody like that, you took money from her.
Yes.
Right. Did you think that the story you were going to tell me was going to make you a sympathetic character?
Not at all.
Good. Let's get to the money. Come on.
Oh, well, after several pretty bizarre things that Tina pulled between September and December, I tried cutting off the relationship several times. Tina's texts me 15, 20 times a day, calls me, begs me to let her back into our relationship, start our relationship over.
Is this your child?
No, ma'am. She's a witness in this factor. Tina, I let back in approximately times between September 1st all the way up to the February 11th. She just constantly says I'm cheating on her.
You want to know something? You want to tell the sad story? Go on Dr. Phil.
Right.
I want to know about the money.
The money. Tina would manipulate things and try to get me to let her back in. And after 3 or 4 weeks of constant texting me every day and please begging me to let her come back and start the relationship over, I did it several times. Tina...
Bambino, listen to me carefully. Get to the money.
I am?
In December, she may be desperate and she may find something about you attractive. Mr. Bambino, I do not.
I know that.
You are 43 years old. You look every day of it.
I know.
And then some. And Mr. Bambino, and then some. I have children who are 43 years old, sir. That's not you. That's the first thing. Second thing is, let's get to the money in December. Excuse me, you date him? No. Perfect. Get to the money.
All right, I let Tina come back over in early December. She laid $1,200 on my couch and said, pay your bills with this. I don't care when you give it back to me, just pay your bills. She insisted. I did pay. I paid my rent with it, of course. The other things, utilities, she paid $100 for the heating bill.
Mr. Bambino, how do you think Miss Smoot knew that you didn't pay your utility bills and that you didn't pay your rent? How do you think?
By communicating
By you
with
telling
me.
her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that kind of casual conversation that inspired her to leave the $1,200 on the table for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah. And it was at that time that you were concerned about her bizarre behavior that she exhibited 6 or 7 times.
Over that 6-month frame, yes.
Now, you were a corrections officer for 15 years, sir. You knew that there were certain prisoners that were dangerous, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you were dealing with a dangerous prisoner, there were certain protocols. You made sure that you didn't put yourself in harm's way. That was your training, right?
Absolutely.
So here you're dealing with a lunatic, somebody who over the course of 6 or 7 months is doing crazy, bizarre things. So instead of cutting it off, you know where the courthouse is. So if you know if somebody is stalking you, somebody is annoying you, you go to the courthouse and you say, this person is stalking me, annoying me, I need a protective order. Instead, you had somebody stalking you, you took their money. No. You took their money. I didn't say loan, I didn't say gift, I said you took their money. Well, you did, you just told me that, Mr. Bambino. You told me she was stalking you, harassing you, doing all kinds of bizarre things, and she put $1,200 down on the table, and she paid your bills, and you took it. That's what you just told me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You have to be a nice man, Mr. Bambino.
Cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tina Smoot claims ex-boyfriend John Bambino owes for a loan to help with his living expenses. John is countersuing for harassment and claims Tina intentionally damaged his property.
Okay. Now, it is your claim, Mr. Bambino, your counterclaim, that the plaintiff damaged your property, harassed you, and damaged your clothing. You want to tell me when that happened and where?
First week in November, Tina was going to North Carolina for a wedding.
And when did she give you the money, sir?
December.
On a sympathy scale, sir, of 1 to 10, this is about going to be a -5, because what you're going to tell me is that she, again, acted like a nut, but you took money from her the next month, right?
Yes.
Keep going.
She told me she would let me borrow her Jeep. I dropped off my friend's automobile that I was using at the time, which was a female friend of mine for 18 years. Tina, in the process, went in the glove box and found out who the car belonged to. She took a pen and ripped the whole roof of the inside of the car, ripped the leather on the seats, took a soda and threw it all over my clothes in the back. That's the incident in November.
Why did you do that, Tina?
I didn't go to that extreme.
What did you... Tina.
What happened?
Why did you do it?
I didn't do that, Your Honor.
Yes, you did. You did some of it.
I called him and told him to bring my Jeep.
What did you do to the stuff in the car?
I poured soda on his clothes, that was all.
You poured soda on his clothes. Is there a police report with regard to the damage to this friend's car?
No, ma'am, but I have pictures.
It's not your car.
It's not my car.
Did you fix the car?
Not yet.
then you're not the person who can file this claim against Miss Smoot. That would be the car owner.
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as throwing soda on your clothes,
So what?
you owe her $1,480. You have to be a nice man, Mr. Bambino.
I'm a very nice man.
No, you're not. If she's a nut, you're not supposed to take advantage of people who are not balanced. If you actually believe that Miss Smoot is not balanced, then what you're supposed to do is not be a cad and take advantage of her financially. You're supposed to say, I don't want your money. I don't want it as a gift. I don't want it as a loan. I don't want you in my life. I don't want that at all because I don't think you're balanced. I think that you should take this money and use it well by going to see a doctor who will maybe give you some medication to help you feel better. Instead, what you did is you took advantage of her because you're not a nice person. Nice people don't take advantage of sick people. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,480. Your counterclaims dismissed. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It's all a big joke to him anyhow.
That's totally not the case. It's totally not the case.
She thinks that something's going on between us. We're just co-workers. She's a little insane. She needs some medicine.
That's what she thinks.
I feel bad because she's not a bad person. She's got 2 beautiful daughters.
First of all, I don't have 2 daughters. I have a daughter and a son.
I'm not going to date women ever again.
I will never let anybody take advantage of me again.
I'm going to do a background check and...
Of one of the cards. You did that for her, and the understanding was the bills would go to her and she would take care of the bills. And it is your claim that subsequent to that, she wanted to buy a motorcycle. And again, you agreed to be a friend, and you co-signed the loan for the motorcycle with the understanding that she would make the payments promptly, which she failed to do. You subsequently found out that not only had she taken card, but because she had all of your information, she took out a series of credit cards and built up a balance of thousands of dollars. She was also behind on the payments. She was behind on the payments on the bike as well. As a result of that, your credit, which had been pristine, took a dive. So you're suing for 2 things. You're suing for the return of the motorcycle to you or its value so that you can sell it and get out from under the payments. And second, you want damages for her ruining your credit. Ms. Seifert says that she kept her end of the bargain. She has paid on the motorcycle, although she acknowledges she doesn't pay in a prompt manner. She pays when they threaten her. That's not what she says, but I gather that's the case, that when they threaten to either sue her or repossess the motorcycle, she makes a payment. That still doesn't positively impact on your credit. And she says that she kept her end of the bargain by making the payments on the credit card. She also says that you opened up all these credit cards for her, not just the one that you say, but all of the others. When did you open up this credit card with her as a co-card holder?
Probably around June of '05, and there was only one card. And if there was all these credit cards...
No, just don't, you don't have to answer for her.
Okay.
You opened up one
June
credit...
of '05.
And with what financial institution?
MBNA, MasterCard, and both our names are on it.
And as far as you know, that is the only card that you authorized her to get?
Yes.
With your information?
Yes.
How many cards did she get using your information?
4 or 5, counting the second MBNA she took out, that she succeeded. I have documentation.
I'd like to see it, please.
Your Honor, there was only one MBNA card. There wasn't 2.
I have how many?
There was 2 Chase. There was 1 MBNA.
No.
Ms. Seifert, how many cards did the plaintiff agree to take out in your name?
Ma'am, I went to creditcards.com with her information because...
Listen.
We never determined a number. The cards that I had, that I used, several of them were mailed to her home, to her address. I didn't go to her house and steal those cards.
Ms. Seifert, you don't honestly expect, coming here today, that you're going to get over on me,
No,
right?
I don't. I'm
Good.
just telling you.
So then let me ask the questions and don't skirt around the answers because I'll take you and I shake you. And then I get the answer.
Okay.
You came to the plaintiff and asked her if she could take out a credit card and put you as a co-holder on a credit card so that you would have a credit card to start to build up your credit. That's what you asked her, I assume. Is that right?
She offered.
Well, how would she know that you needed it, madam, unless she knew that you didn't have a credit card?
Because we were going on vacation together and we were talking about finances for vacation and the things our kids could and couldn't do.
And?
And I explained to her that I did not have a credit card with much credit on it.
That's okay. Good. So she agreed to get one credit card. Now, after she got the one credit card in June of 2005, when did you apply for the other credit cards?
I did it all at the same time on creditcards.com when I got the one credit card.
Just a second. I told you, don't play with me.
I'm not.
I'm smarter than you are. You just said to me, I got the other credit cards on creditcard.com after I got the one credit card.
That's not what I said.
That's exactly what you just said. I have a tape.
The one time on creditcards.com, and several cards were mailed to her house, and she knows that.
Don't tell me what she knows. Why did you take advantage of a situation where she said she would get you a credit
It was very bad
card?
judgment on my part.
Now, when you got these credit cards, did you use them to make purchases?
Yes, I did.
Did you pay all the credit cards on time?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Then you ruined her credit.
Then I signed to be responsible for all of them. All the papers she asked me to, and it was taken off of her credit.
Listen to me. You show me where, once you signed a piece of paper to be responsible, because so far it impacted positively on her credit. Show me.
I don't know where it acted positively, but she was even told it was taken off her credit after the affidavits were signed, and I also have 2 receipts for $6,500 we've paid her.
Just a sec. For?
Towards the credit cards.
Well, you didn't pay it to her, you paid it to the credit card for things that you bought.
No, we gave it directly to her to take care of it.
Doesn't make any difference, madam. Don't you get it? Once you become a deadbeat in the credit card world, you don't automatically become not a deadbeat just because you pay the credit card. You remain a deadbeat.
But they said that because they called it fraudulent, it would come off of her report.
So you acknowledge that you fraudulently
No,
applied?
she made me sign those papers because if I didn't, because I'm on probation, she was going to call my probation officer, which she threatens to do all the time.
Sounds like a great idea to me. Now, let's get to the motorcycle. She also co-signed a loan for you for a motorcycle. Is there any reason why you did that, madam?
I was trying to be good-hearted, which I will never do again.
You have children?
Yes, I'll never even co-sign for my children. I've learned a lesson the worst way.
Okay. Now, do you pay for the motorcycle on time?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
Which means that you have destroyed her credit.
Yes, ma'am, I probably have with the motorcycle.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Your motorcycles?
I have 2 motorcycles, yes.
Well, why don't you sell one?
Because I like them.
Yeah, but you live in a home with this lady, and she's got a problem. So why don't you help her fix it?
And later today.
Was he more exciting when you were together?
He has a problem with confrontation, Your Honor.
Ah, and I love confrontation.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Vicky Madure claims former friend Becky Seifert ruined her credit by not paying on credit cards she helped her get.
Good. Now I'd like to see what papers you have.
They asked me to bring, I brought a picture of the motorcycle. She wants the motorcycle back, but the title is solely in my name. So if she wants the bike back, she's going to have to get my name off the title because I'm liable for anybody that she lets ride that bike, and she's not capable of riding it herself.
Just a second.
And then I have a statement now
that
that shows that all my payments are current.
You make your payments late.
Well, I mean, it shows that I'm current right now.
I don't care whether you're current right now. You make your payments late. Can I see the title to the motorcycle, please? When did you co-sign on the motorcycle?
October 05.
How much have you paid on the motorcycle?
I've made all the payments except the ones she made, and I
How
paid
much
her back
do
for
you
them.
pay?
$250 a month, ma'am.
How much is the loan?
She owes, right now, there's still almost $12,000 owed. Right here it is. $11,818.42 owed.
Who are you?
Becky's boyfriend.
Stand up. What do you do for a living?
Run a rubber mill.
You earn a living?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, why don't you refinance this motorcycle?
I already have one in my name.
So what?
I don't know, ma'am.
What?
This was between them.
Well, I understand that, but you live with her. You sleep with her.
Yes.
So why should she be on the hook for her bad credit?
She was having trouble with her credit way before us.
I'm asking you a question. I just said to you, she sleeps with you, you live with her. Why don't you, the two of you, refinance this motorcycle and get it out of her name?
Well, I've got too much in my name right now with my house, my cars, and my motorcycles, so...
Your motorcycles?
I have 2 motorcycles, yes.
Well, why don't you sell one?
Because I like them.
Yeah, but you have a problem. You live in a home with this lady, and she's got a problem. So why don't you help her fix it?
Well, I did. I took out a 401k loan and paid off the credit cards that she had with her to help her out. I mean...
What does she do?
Huh?
What do you mean, huh? What does she do?
What does she do?
As far as a livelihood?
She works in a doctor's office.
She make a living?
Yes.
So why doesn't she refinance it?
Your Honor, I don't know.
Why don't you refinance it?
I can't get it just in my name, Your Honor.
Well, maybe you can get it in his name. He owns his own home.
Well, we haven't tried that, but the last time he tried to get a loan, they said he had too much credit out.
Then why don't you sell the motorcycle?
I just haven't found anybody that'll buy it. It's not worth what we owe on it.
Now, she says she wanted to sell it. Her problem was she couldn't get what was owed on it. So you would have no problem signing it over to her, right?
As long as it's out of my name, I have no problem. And I've told her that
Fine,
before.
absolutely perfect. Have her sign this over to her,
That's
please.
a memorandum title, ma'am.
So?
But that is not the actual title.
So I understand that. The
That's what I'm
actual
asking.
title has a lien on it. She can do it. As a matter of fact, we'll prepare that order that you'll sign.
That's fine.
Good. Now we know that this is now your motorcycle. We will prepare that order. Now you're suing her for $3,000 because in addition to the return of the value of the motorcycle, you want damages for ruining your credit, right?
Yes.
And hopefully the $3,000 that you're suing for that will help compensate you for the loss that you're going to suffer on the motorcycle. Do you understand?
Yes.
Very good. Judging for the plaintiff, in the addition to the order that this will now be in your name, subject to the lien, judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I am so happy. She's out of my life.
I'm just glad the motorcycle's gone and I don't have to deal with her anymore.
Cannot comprehend anybody.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter, Banks versus Robertson. Step forward, please.
Linda Banks is suing her neighbor, Herbert Robertson, for accidentally shooting out her windows with a BB gun. Herbert claims he's a better shot than that.
Miss Banks, Mr. Robertson is your neighbor, and it is your claim that he shot out some windows in your home with a BB gun.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Robertson, while he acknowledges the fact that he was shooting his BB gun, said that, A, it's impossible for the gun to have pierced the windows of your house because it would have to go through a bunch of trees, and B, it would be impossible anyway because he's a very good shot. And he was shooting at squirrels, and he knows that because he's such a good shot, he would not have missed and damaged your property. Those are your two defenses. Is that right, sir?
Pretty much.
Tell me where I'm wrong. I like to know where I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, I might miss on occasion.
Oh.
But, you know, like I say, you know, I never shot until they were in front of the big tree, so.
Okay. Miss Banks, have you had any trouble with Mr. Robertson before?
Yes, I have.
With what?
About 5 years ago.
Stop playing with that, please. It's distracting me, and at my age, nothing should distract me when I'm trying to work. Yes.
Approximately 5 years ago, Your Honor, he installed a pool improperly in his backyard, and that pool ruptured, and the water came down my backyard because he lives here and I live here, and approximately 19,000 gallons of water came into my basement. And what I did was I asked him to come over to survey the damage. He did. Was that it wasn't that bad, but because we're neighbors and I tried to handle it civilly, I settled with his insurance company for $1,200, and there was a lot more damage than that, let alone the time. And I asked him to just help me clean it up, and he refused to do that. This time, when I discovered the damage, I said I wasn't going to let it go.
Since the incident 5 years ago, I assume that the relationship between the two of you has been strained.
Yes.
What date were you shooting at squirrels, Mr. Robertson, when Miss Banks came over and told you you had damaged her windows?
Oh, she never did.
Who did?
I did. This guy. I mean, I was out in the backyard one day, and he hollers at me and says, you shot my garage window. I said, well, I don't know if I did, but if I did, I'll replace it. He says, don't worry about it. I just wanted you to know about it. And so ever since then, we quit shooting the BB guns.
Well, when was this, sir, that you told him he shot out the window?
It was the third week of July. His son was out shooting and actually shot over top of my head.
How old is your son?
16.
Don't you know that you could hurt somebody with a BB gun?
If you hit somebody, it'd probably sting.
Well, if you hit him in the eye, it could blind him.
Probably could.
If you hit him in the ear, it could make him go deaf.
Probably could.
So why do you do it?
I didn't.
No, why do you let your son play with a BB gun?
Well, you know, I imagine there's probably 40, 50 kids in that neighborhood got BB guns.
I don't give a rat's behind about 40 or 50 kids. I'm asking you, why do you let your son shoot a BB gun?
Because I don't see anything wrong with it. It's my yard. If he wants to shoot a pop can or something in the backyard, you know, that's no problem. You know, this guy's saying he got one shot over his head. I doubt it. How would you know?
Because you can hear it coming through the...
You can't hear a BB.
Mr. Robertson.
Yeah, it's like, when I say something...
Yes.
I mean, it's like we're talking about the swimming pool. You know, 19,000 gallons of water didn't go in her basement. You know, I did go and survey the damage. It didn't look that bad.
Went into her basement?
My insurance company took it.
When I'm speaking, you see, you may be able. Is this your wife?
Yeah.
You may be able to interrupt her. Don't interrupt me.
No, I was speaking.
No. But when I start to speak, Mr. Robertson, you have to stop. That's the way we play here.
Okay.
My playpen.
That's fine.
Good. Can I see the damage to your house, please?
Yes, ma'am. I have police reports as well, if you would like to see those.
I would.
And then also I've included estimates.
Good. How many windows?
3 windows, and then the truck windshield.
Well, either you or your son have lousy aim, sir.
Would you mind asking this man if he did agree, you know, that I told him I'd take care of the window, and he said, don't worry about it, I just want you to be aware of it? Because after that date, we never shot anymore.
When you first...
Shh, don't answer him.
It's like rock damage to me. No BB did that.
Yes.
Judge Judy, I would like to add, originally, the first incident he did offer to pay. The second incident was August the 11th, the date of the police report.
And on the second incident, how many windows were shot out?
That's when we discovered the damage of the second additional window pane in the garage, the bedroom window, and then the truck window.
Got it. Still have the BB gun, Mr. Robertson?
Yeah.
Still let your son use it?
Like I said, nobody shot it since he said I shot his garage window out.
Well, you don't know that, sir. You do work, don't you? You do
No,
work.
I don't.
You don't work?
No.
Why not?
I'm disabled.
What's the nature of your disability?
Back. I've
You have
had
a bad
5 back
back.
surgeries.
Really? How can you shoot a BB gun with a bad back?
A BB gun?
Yeah, how can you pick up a BB gun?
Well, how much do you think it weighs?
Kind of hard to shoot. Well, incapacitating. Seems to be if you can do this, you consider it death.
Well, I'm just saying, I offered to pay for it. He said, don't worry about it. And that was the end of the shooting.
He doesn't want
that.
you to know. Listen to me. He doesn't want you to worry about it. He wants you to pay for it. There's a difference.
I offered to pay for it.
Good.
Ask my wife.
Oh, I won't. She has to go home with you.
For
that, she has
you
my
done made
sincere
your mind up.
condolences.
And like I said, you know, I thought you were innocent until you're proven guilty.
That's what we just did.
No, you didn't.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,200. Thank you. That's all.
It don't matter. She ain't listening no way.
Have a good day.
Why is excused? You may step out.
Hey, I'm glad for the neighbors that they got a new truck window, but I didn't shoot it out.
I have animals. We're out in the backyard, and we should be able to be out there without worrying about possibly our eyes being shot out with a BB gun.
And for harassment and for a small loan that you made to him. Mr. Hood says that, as a matter of fact, he owes you nothing. Your relationship after he moved in changed, and that you told him he didn't have to pay rent. There was some point where he gave you the title to his car as collateral on the loan. It got very, very ugly. And Mr. Hood says that you actually kept some tools that were in his truck. He's counterclaiming for that property, and also he says that you've been harassing him. Is that right, Mr. Hood?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Hood, how do you know Miss Adams?
I did some work on her house about 3 to 4 years ago for another contractor, and I met her at a bar about a year before that, and did the work on her house, and when I got done, she was wanting to do some further work, so I said okay, and me and my girlfriend, we had a falling out, we split up, and I was asked to leave, and I went to Miss Adams, and I said, would you care to trade the work for the rent? And she agreed.
That's not true. Shh. Well, it is true, because that's what you say in your complaint, that initially he asked to move in, and you agreed that until he found a job, because you didn't have a job at that point.
Correct.
According to her.
But he had one lined up.
Shh. According to your complaint, you said, well, you can do some work around the house until you start your job, and then you can pay me rent. Is that what she told you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. When did you move in?
It was around January. It was like maybe right around the 16th.
And what work did you do in the house?
She had a bathroom, didn't have enough plywood on the floor, so when you set the toilet down, the wax ring wouldn't fit right, so I had to build up some plywood around the toilet.
How long did that take you, Mr. Hood?
Probably a couple hours.
What else did you do in the house?
I patched holes in her walls. She had various holes.
How many various holes did she have?
Probably about maybe 5 or 6.
5 or 6 holes. With your
2.
hands, show me how big the holes were.
Just like pinholes were.
Little holes?
They're little tiny, like nail holes.
It was where a towel rack had fallen off the wall.
Listen to me. Okay. Speak not.
Sorry.
little pinholes. So what you do is you go to the store, right? You get a little tub of that putty stuff. You go like this, you put it in, you smooth it over,
Yes,
right?
Your Honor.
She had about 6 of those.
There was like maybe some like that too as well.
Oh,
When
big
she
nail.
pulled a picture.
Big ones, so that you had to go like this
Yes, Your Honor.
instead of like this, right? Would you
Yes,
say
Your
it took you 20 minutes?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that now we have 2 hours and 20 minutes. What else did you do?
She wanted a wall framed in her basement, which I told her then I wasn't afraid. It would look good. To the eye, it would look good, but it wasn't perfectly level. I didn't have levels. I had very little stuff to work with. But I had just enough, and I got the wall built.
You built a wall,
Yes, Your Honor.
an unlevel wall.
Yes, Your Honor.
And, Mr. Hood, how long would you say that it took you to build that wall?
Probably about 5 hours.
What else did you do?
I'm not.
That's about it.
Okay, so that we have, and I shot. So this is what we have, Mr. Hood. We have 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 5 hours. That is 7.5 hours. That is a full day, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You moved in on what date? The 16th of
Yes, Your Honor.
January? On what date did you start to pay rent?
I think it was like a month, roughly about a month after
And
that.
how much was your rent per week, per month? What did you decide?
She decided she wanted to make it $100 a week.
$100 a week. And you worked for a day. And you lived there for a month before you started to pay rent,
Yes, Your Honor.
according to you. So that would mean that you owe her 4-something weeks in a month. Let's say you have $450 for rent. So let's say I'm going to deduct $50 for all the work you did for her.
Okay.
$50. Is that fair?
Yes, Your Honor.
This is too easy. And when did you move out?
It was probably right around March. I don't know the exact date.
Miss Adams does. What day in March? Miss
March
Adams?
30th.
Oh, January, February, March. So he lived there about 3 months. How much did he pay you in rent?
$200.
When? In what month did he give you
The last 2 weeks he was there.
What'd you let him stay for?
Well, I felt sorry for him because he was fighting for his children, and I took in the whole story about how the state had the kids in foster care and they were turning against him, and he hadn't seen the kids in months. He needed a decent place to stay where the children could come. And my heart went out to him. And once I let him move into the house, the state was allowing the children to come see him on Sundays, sometimes Saturdays, at my home, in my presence.
Is that true, Mr. Hood?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
And I felt sorry for him, and I felt sorry for the children until I found out what he was really like, and I believe the children are better off where they are right now.
Why?
Because they're on a farm with their aunt, and these two are in the bars nearly every night. He met me in a bar. I was DJing at that bar. I wasn't drinking. I was the DJ there.
How do you know that they're at a bar every night?
I know several bar owners in town because I do DJ work.
How many children do you have, Mr. Hood?
I have 6 children, Your Honor.
How old are they?
One's 21, one's 10, and little girl's 17, one's 18, and then the 2 and 3-year-old.
When was the last time you lived with any of your children?
Roughly about a year.
And then the state removed them?
I was removed from the house because of domestic violence.
You were?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The work that he did is so substandard that it's
Listen
going
to
to cost me $1,500 to fix.
That's your problem.
I don't think it is.
It is your problem because you're a big girl.
And later today,
Is this your wife?
Yeah.
You may be able to interrupt her. Don't interrupt me.
No, I was speaking.
No, when I start to speak, Mr. Robertson, you have to stop. That's the way we play here in my playpen.
That's fine.
Good.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Connie Adams says former friend Richard Hood owes for rent, loans, and harassment. Richard is countersuing for the return of his truck.
All right, Miss Adams. What else?
I have receipts for the loans that I gave him.
Let me see it.
All of those are receipts. And his bar tab.
I don't care about his bar tab. All these checks that you have circled are made out to cash, Miss Adams.
Right, because he doesn't have a bank account. I had to get cash to give him. It says in the memo that it was a loan to him on two
I don't
of them.
care what it says in the memo.
Ma'am, he truly does owe me that money on that loan. He truly does.
You want to tell me about the lawyer's fee?
Yes, I do. He was in court at family court, and his attorney was not going to represent him. He called me several times, very upset, because he knew then he was going to lose guardianship of his children. And I said, I don't know what I can do. I don't really have a lot of funds.
When was
this? And he said, I think February 24th, January or February 24th.
Did you give your lawyer money on about the 24th of February?
Yes, I did, Your
From
Honor.
her?
Yes, you did.
I drove it
How
over
much?
to the court.
It was about $120, yes,
How much?
$150.
which I paid her back.
He
Show
did
me.
not.
I don't have any receipts, Your
That's
Honor.
too bad.
Okay.
When did he leave and why?
He left the end of March because I had him removed from the home. Because
Why?
well, first of all, he was sexually harassing me, trying to come in my room
Not
when
true.
I was dressing after I'd come out of the shower.
Not true.
He had his hands all over me at his birthday party.
Who is
And
this?
This is my 23-year-old son. And
All right, at that
several events.
At that point, he left. Did the police put him out?
They came as standby, and I do have the standbys that shows the police presence for him to remove all of his possessions, with the exception of the truck, because I had the title to the truck as collateral, and I showed it to the police officers. Then he went and said he had lost a title and went and fraudulently got another title for the truck so he could come get it. And the police escorted him there. If there was anything missing out of the truck, he would have complained to the police at that time.
Okay, I assume he has a police report where that's indicated. You have
I
a
don't
police
have any police report. She said I could come back.
No, I did not.
She said I could come back and
No,
get
I
the
did
stuff.
not.
I got most of it. There was some
Good.
stuff
Well,
I
if you
forgot.
then you should have gotten all of it, sir. Listen to me. My sense is that at some point or another, you felt as if the money that you were laying out for him, he wasn't paying your rent, he certainly wasn't doing work around the house. He was drinking. There's no question about that because he didn't stop drinking for the 2.5 months he was living with you. If you're walking around with shades over your eyes, don't come to me to complain.
He had a job the very next day that he was going to start at $27 an hour, and I knew once he started working, I was going to get paid.
But
That's
you
why I
didn't.
got his
But
tools
according
out,
to
'cause
you,
he needed
you
the
didn't.
tools. Well, then he started to work on the wall, and the work that he did is so substandard that it's
Listen
going
to
to
me.
cost me $1,500 to fix what he did.
Well, that's your.
It is.
It is your problem because you're a big girl.
I really thought he was getting his life together for his kids. I used to be a preacher's wife. I went to Bible college. I was trying to do what we've been taught to do. I've learned now it doesn't pay to help people unless they're related to you.
And even then, not always. Let's get to your counterclaim, sir. Your counterclaim is for the tools. I'm dismissing that part of your counterclaim because unless you have a police report that indicates you still had tools in the truck, you got your truck back, you got everything back. If you're missing tools, that's too bad. So far, you owe $550.
He owes more than that. I also have telephone tape recordings where he tells me he owes me at least $900 and that he will pay it. I have a transcript and the tape right here.
Oh, well, that I'll hear. You have a tape that says he owes you $900?
That's correct. And that he wronged me, and that
I
he
don't care
didn't
if he
expect me to
wronged
give
you
him the
or
truck.
you-
Well, and he said he didn't expect me to give him the truck until he'd paid for it.
Well, he doesn't say he owes you $900. Madam, what he says is, look, Connie, I don't want to argue with you or nothing. If I owe you $900, I'll pay you. That's what it says. That means, sir, that she must have said to you, you owe me $900, right?
She claimed that.
I told him he owed more, but that's what I give him the truck back for. And
Listen.
I told him that in front of the police.
Hey,
okay.
Don't play with me. I've been in business a lot longer than you have,
The truck's
Miss Adams.
not worth even that much.
Well, just listen to me. Somewhere between telling him that he owed you $900 and you filing this case for $3,000, $2,100 got added
when
on
I
to
found
what
out
he
how
owed
much
you.
the damage was going to cost on the house, and he started harassing me. Even sent his girlfriend to crash my birthday party after he beat her up.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $550, which is what I said in the beginning. I believe that there was a relationship that was brewing.
No,
between-
I had a boyfriend, and I have a restraining. He
Counter-
took out a restraining order, ma'am.
Counterclaim is dismissed, so she owes you nothing.
That
you owe
the court threw out as a misuse of
$400 for the
justice.
rent, and $150 for the loan that you acknowledge. Goodbye.
Where's our excuse? You may step out.
He was enamored with me, and I didn't want him like that. He was supposed to rent a room there.
She wanted to have sex, and that was the bottom line. Put out or get out.
I have no desire to be with something like that.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Ham, this used to be your boyfriend.
That's right.
And you have 2 children together.
That's correct.
Your last child with him was born in 2004.
That's right.
It is your claim that he took your car without permission on the day that your last child was born and he wrecked it.
That's right.
You want him to pay for the damage to the car because your father co-signed for the car. You're still paying off the car. The car was totaled. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
And the insurance company disclaimed because he did not have a driver's license.
That's right.
And Mr. Barrett says that you have to really take that up with your insurance company.
Yes.
Insurance company should not have disclaimed. But there are some facts that are sort of interesting. You say he took your car without your permission.
That's right.
I'm not sure I believe that. Not that that's necessarily dispositive of what happens here today, but I like the truth right from the beginning.
Okay.
The two of you were living together.
On and off, yes.
You were living together. You had 2 children together. You were living together.
At that time, yes.
All right. And at the time that you went to the hospital, who drove you to the hospital?
Mac.
There we go. So he had your permission to drive your car.
To the hospital.
He had your permission to drive your car.
At that point.
Now, Miss Ham, the day before he went to work, is that right?
Yes.
And how did he get to work?
His vehicle, or the vehicle he drove, which was a 95 Escort.
Didn't take your car?
No.
Never took your car?
No.
Is that right, sir?
No.
Of course it's not.
It is correct.
No.
The only 2 times he drove it was when I was in the vehicle with him. He's never taken it ever by himself prior to that date. Ever.
Is that right, Mr. Barrett?
No.
Of course not. When you share a bed together, you share 2 children together, I don't believe, as I said, it's not necessarily dispositive, but I don't like fibbers.
Oh, I'm not fibbing.
I don't like fibbers. But even so, you gave him permission, you gave him the keys to take you to the hospital that day, and he drove your car. Later on, Mr. Barrett decided to take the car out again. Is that right, sir?
Yes.
How did you expect the car to get from the hospital back home?
Well, my dad arranged to watch our children because he was going to stay in the hospital the entire time and drive me home, me and the baby.
You mean he was going to stay there overnight?
Right, the entire time.
Wasn't going to go out to eat?
He wasn't going to go to work.
He wasn't going to go to work, wasn't going to go to eat,
No.
wasn't going to, so believe that.
Well, I'm sorry. That's the point. He left me there without a car seat for my child.
Listen to me. The only problem that I have with your testimony, Miss Ham, is that I don't like when you start out not telling me the truth. And the truth is, he took the car to the hospital. He drove you to the hospital. He had your permission to take the car. He had the keys to the car with your permission, and then he took the car out again. What happened after that is his fault. But don't start out telling a judge not the whole truth, because then we begin to hold suspect everything that you say. Do you understand?
I understand.
Good. I understand that you want your money. Lying is not the way to get it.
I don't feel that I'm lying.
Well, you are. Because he had permission to drive your car, and your complaint said he had no permission. He had your permission to drive the car, and it wasn't limited to just taking you to the hospital, because when you're in labor going to the hospital, you didn't say to him, you only have permission to drive me to the hospital and drop me off there. You may not take the car out again for any other, because that doesn't work. Not when you're going to deliver a baby.
He's lying when he says he's drove my van. He never has.
I don't believe that.
He had a 95 Escort that he drove.
I don't believe it. I don't believe that during the time you had the car, he didn't need the car once in a while when his car wasn't working, when his car was in repair. He drove your car, he drove you and your child in the car out for other things. When was your license suspended, sir?
8 days prior.
What was it suspended for?
A previous accident that someone had sued me, and I didn't realize that if you didn't pay a debt that was involved in an accident, it was like $500 that they could take your license in our state.
And how were you notified that they took your license?
By mail.
Who opened the mail?
I believe I did.
Did you tell Miss Ham that your license was suspended?
Yes, she knew.
No, that's not what I asked you. I said, did you tell her?
Yes, I told her.
Okay, so at the time she gave you the keys to the car to drive it to the hospital, according to you, she knew that your license was suspended.
Yes, we was trying to figure out, because I was calling from the hospital trying to figure out why they were suspending, because I still wasn't for sure why.
Okay, now we get to what's your fault. So you took her to the hospital, your baby was born. When did you decide to go drinking?
After I left work.
The next day?
No. We was at the hospital all day, and I left from the hospital. I was there all that day, and then I left from the hospital to go to work that evening.
Had the baby been born yet?
Yes.
Did you say goodbye to her?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And you only had one car at the hospital?
Yes.
Said goodbye, you looked at the baby, played coochie-coo?
Yes.
So after work, instead of going back to the hospital, you decided to go get drunk. And you got drunk, and you drove the car, and you were in an accident?
Yes.
And you spent the next 18 months in jail?
Yes.
So that answers my next question, which is why it took so long for you to get here to file your claim. But do you understand what I mean, Miss Ham, when you start out by telling a fib?
I mean, I understand.
You understand? Good. So he went to work. There's no question in my mind that he stayed with you in the hospital till the baby was born. And then he came to say goodbye, that he was going out, that he said goodbye to you, so you knew he wasn't going out by foot. You knew he was taking the car. Got it?
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
she didn't get you down on the floor before you left the hospital and open up your mouth, hold your nose, and pour down a bottle of Grey Goose down your throat, did she?
I prefer Absolute, but no.
And later today,
Are you both nuts? Are you really both crazy? It would never dawn on me over this kind of thing to sue a child.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kimberly Ham says the father of her children, Mac Barrett, had no driver's license when he stole her minivan and crashed it. Mac claims Kimberly gave him permission to drive it.
Yeah. I want you to show me proof that the insurance company disclaimed on this claim when he totaled the car. They disclaimed on the ground that you didn't have a valid driver's license.
Also, when I got home from the hospital, I had to stay at my dad's for a day because he had the only set of keys, which were mine, that had our apartment key on there, and I couldn't get into our apartment. And then I checked the mail. That's when I found the suspended license validation in the mail.
So the insurance company declined coverage, and the policyholder was you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, your own insurance company declined your policy, sir, on the car that's in her name.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Car has to be in both your names in order for you to have an insurable interest in it. Can I see the title to the car, please?
We don't have the title. It's not paid off. I'm still making payments on it and not being able to drive it.
I'm just surprised that the insurance company allowed him to insure the car if he had no insurable interest in the car. I'm going back to my Insurance 101 in law school. Okay. Now, Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
You want to explain to me why you think that you have no responsibility with regard to this car that she's still paying off that cost $17,000?
Well, for one, I mean, I had permission to drive the vehicle.
You did. I find that you had permission to drive the vehicle. And I find that she had knowledge of the fact that you didn't have a driver's license. Neither one of those things contributed to your accident.
Okay.
You agree with that?
No.
Well, let me ask you this question, sir. Did the fact that you had a suspended driver's license cause you to have an accident?
No.
What caused you to have an accident?
Drinking.
Right. Now, she didn't get you down on the floor before you left the hospital and open up your mouth, hold your nose, and pour down a bottle of Grey Goose down your throat, did she?
I prefer Absolute, but no.
Absolute. Cute, but no cigar. She didn't do that to you, did you? You did that all by yourself?
Yes.
And that was the proximate cause of your accident. Your drinking. Not the fact that you had a suspended driver's license. You didn't have an accident, so driving her to the hospital, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what's the proximate cause of your accident? What did the law find, sir?
Drinking and driving.
That beyond a reasonable doubt, for which you spent 18 long months in jail, because it wasn't your first one. Couldn't have been your first one. Some judge was good and fed up with you. How many DUIs had you had?
One prior.
How much injury was caused to the other side and the one that you had back in 2004?
I'm not exactly for sure. They was injured.
And they weren't injured because you had a suspended driver's license, were they?
No.
They were injured because you were drunk.
Yeah.
Do you see your children?
Yes.
How often?
Every other weekend.
Do you support them?
Yes.
How much?
$140 a week.
How much do you earn?
I bring home $342 a week.
Have you made any effort to help Miss Ham and her father with regard to this debt that they incurred because of you?
No, they won't even let me see the van. I haven't even seen it. When I asked to see the van, she said it was on private property.
You have the bill to have it fixed?
It's totaled.
Can I see it?
Yes. I have pictures and then where.
You have a statement that indicates it's totaled?
Yes, I have the vehicle pricing and the estimate where it was done. My dad took care of that, so if you have any questions, he's the one that took care of the estimate.
Just show this to him, would you, please? How many other cars did you hit?
Just one.
Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Thank you.
Excuse you, may step out.
out and plead that he'll have to pay for the damage that he caused to the van.
What can I say?
I've had to pay on the van for the last 2 years and not be able to drive it.
Didn't feel, that I was fully responsible, so whatever. She's going to decide what she wants to decide.
She basically owes $12,000 on the van that she'll continue to pay on, and Mr. Barrett will have nothing. He'll have no responsibility.
I mean, it bothers me a little bit, but what can you do?
I would just like to move on from this, and hopefully Mr. Barrett can do the proper thing.
All parties in the matter of Bryson versus McCann step forward.
15-year-old Ryan Bryson and his mother Tammy are suing the father of Ryan's former friend, Christopher McCann, for medical bills. Ryan claims Christopher's son Zach knocked out his teeth with a bottle.
Mrs. Bryson, it is your claim that this young man caused injury to your son's tooth.
That's correct.
They were playing a game. His father says it was an accident. They were both fooling around, and accidents happen. So since neither you nor Mr. McCain were there, you can both sit down. What's your first name?
Brian.
And yours?
Zach.
How long have you been friends?
About 2 or 3 months.
When did this accident happen?
December 20th.
What were you doing?
We were sliding this replica of this plastic bottle back and forth at school.
Sliding it?
Yeah, sliding.
Where were you?
By my locker, which is that is like in the 3rd wing of the school.
I want you to show me how you were sliding it.
We were sliding it back and forth.
No, show me on the ground how you were sliding it. You can step right in front of the bench. Step in front of the bench, over there. Show me how you were sliding it.
We were both sitting down and we were sliding.
Sitting down on what?
On the carpet.
Sit down. Go ahead. So you're sliding it. Let me see how you're sliding it.
It's like that.
Right. And what were you doing with it, Zach?
Throwing it back.
Was he sliding it or throwing it?
We were playing catch. We were throwing it back and forth.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Sure it is. Now you can stand up. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, we were sliding it back and forth, and then all of a sudden he threw it and knocked out my teeth. And I don't know why he did that. I did not do anything to provoke him or anything. I never once picked it up and thrown it at him. We were sliding it back and forth.
Go ahead.
We were not sliding it on the ground. We were playing catch, and it was an accident. It was just one catch that he did not catch, and it
How many times was the bottle thrown?
Probably 15 to 20 times.
Anybody else there?
No. It was pretty late after school. It was pretty much cleared out.
After it was thrown, you had pain?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do you think, Zach, that part of the injury to his teeth is your fault?
No, I do not.
Well, you're wrong.
I do not think that it was my fault. We were both playing the game, and we both accepted the probability of it happening. And
no, that's a lot of baloney that your father gave you. If you take an instrumentality and use it in a way other than for which it was designed, do you understand what that means?
Yes.
And there's an accident with it, you are at least partially responsible. Now, if you were drinking that and he ran into the bottle, then he caused that himself because you were using it in a way that it was designed to be used because you were drinking it. But you weren't using it that way. You were playing catch with it.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you're playing catch with something that's dangerous, clearly it could be dangerous, right?
Yes.
Then you have to use care, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that it's all your fault because he chose to play with you. And if you think that for a minute that I believe that you were rolling this, you're nuts. Because I know you weren't rolling it, and you know you weren't rolling it. You may have rolled it once or twice, but you were playing catch with it also, right?
No, that's not right.
I don't believe you, Ryan. I don't believe it. I don't believe that the first time this was thrown, it hit you in the mouth. And I certainly don't believe that Zach intended to hurt you. You think he intended to hurt you?
Yes, Your Honor, I do. Because it had been thrown at a great force to knock out my teeth.
Well, then there's something wrong with you. I don't know who you've been talking to. I know who he's been talking to. I don't know who you've been talking to. If you were sitting and playing with him outside, why in the world would he pick up that and throw it with such force at your face to hurt you? Did you had a fight with him?
No.
Well, then why do you think he had a psychotic moment?
No, Your Honor, not.
So why would you think he would want to hurt you?
Because it has to be thrown at a great force to knock out my teeth.
No. Just caught you in the wrong position. Listen, if you played with something and you played with it in a way that it was not intended, then you assume part of the risk. But he's only partially responsible. And his father's partially responsible because he's too little, despite what your father says. Do you understand why?
Yes.
Do you understand the whole context? What about you, sir? You now understand?
I don't know. I'm having troubles with that.
Well, stand up. I'll give you a lesson. What do you use to cut steak?
Knife, steak knife.
And when you use it properly to cut steak, nothing bad happens to you, right?
Right.
If you decide to play salugi with a steak knife, do you still use that word?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Throwing it. If you decide to throw a steak knife back and you get all cut up, whose fault is that?
I don't know. That's kind of, isn't that on both of them? I mean, it's
Right, that's what you said, a very good thing. You want to say it a little louder?
on both of them.
That's the answer. Because you are using the knife for an activity for which it was not designed. It was not designed to be used as a baseball or a rubber ball. It was designed to be used to cut your meat. Similarly, that bottle that your son purchased out of a vending machine was designed to drink. He and his friend decided to use it for another purpose, and it became dangerous, as evidenced by the fact that it knocked out his 2 front teeth. So both of them are responsible, not just him. He just looked the other way. Okay. Now you can stand up with him. How much were your medical bills?
The emergency care that day to get his teeth glued back in place was $572, and then the estimated cost to get the other part, with all of it together, comes to $4,070. And I have x-rays and pictures of the teeth that were broke out.
What do you have in there now, temporaries?
Yeah, they're just temporary glued on right now.
There is teeth that were the pieces that they could glue back in with fillings, piece filled in, until the nerves could settle down. The dentist said he wanted to wait 8 weeks before he did the root canals and the crowns for the mouth to settle down.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I say something?
Yes.
Okay. This started out as $800, and it's slowly gone up as the weeks have gone up. It ended at $3,000. Now it's at $4,000.
It's not all your responsibility. It's partially your responsibility because your son assumed the risk of playing with him.
Well, this is its tip of the iceberg. He's going to have crowns replaced later on in his life, too.
There's no question, as a result of their boredom at the end of the day, which is what it was, that
he should have been walking home.
Should have been walking home. And it happens. I mean, you know, unfortunately, we hate when it happens to our children.
Yes.
The front 2 teeth.
It's his front tooth and the tooth next to it.
Those are always the teeth that go, the ones
I know.
right when you smile. I know. And you have to pay to have them fixed, and that's what it is. $4,000 divided by 2 is $2,000. Judgment for the plaintiff in that amount. That's all. Thank you.
Why are you so excused when you step out?
I guess I'm going to sign up for baseball.
It was full, half full.
Brian needs to sign up too because he doesn't know how to catch a bottle.
Nothing, I pretty much blacked out. My teeth fell out of my hand.
All parties in the matter, Herzog versus Emery. Step forward, please.
Kimberly Herzog is suing her former nanny, 24-year-old Sarah Emery, for a loan to pay her bills, lost wages, and daycare costs. Sarah says Kimberly is possessive and controlling.
Ms. Herzog, the defendant was working for you as a nanny, and according to your complaint, you loaned her $1,000 because she was having some back surgery. The arrangement was that she was supposed to pay you back. You were going to deduct a certain amount of money when she returned to work from her weekly salary. So far, am I correct?
Yes.
And she had the surgery, and then, according to you, she left your employment. You want your money back.
Correct.
And Miss Emery said that you fired her without good cause, and that's why she couldn't pay you back. When did she come to work for you?
She started working for me January of 2004.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
When was the surgery?
January
of 2005. So for the year that she worked for you, from January 2004 till January 2005, was her work satisfactory?
Yes, until the very end, which actually led to the dismissal. I had spoken to her on multiple occasions.
About what?
About making my child sit on a couch for 3 hours while my other child was sleeping.
That's not true.
When did she borrow the money from you?
She borrowed the money on January 14th.
So she borrowed the money after you had had conversations with her about her performance, her
Yes.
work performance. Was she scheduled to be out of work for any period of time?
Yes, she took 2 weeks off.
And there is no issue as to whether Ms. Herzog loaned you the money?
Correct.
Well, now I'll hear your defense.
Okay. In January, I gave my 2 weeks after I came back to work on Monday. Tuesday night, I called her and I told her I was going to stay with my sister. And she got angry at me and told me that I had to stay at her house.
Well, was it your usual routine to stay at her, to sleep at her house? Or
Yes, I was a live-in nanny, so I stayed at her house.
So why were you going to stay at your sister's house?
It was, she expected me to hang out with her and spend time with her at night when I was off duty. And I didn't think that I should have to stay at her house when I was paying her rent or spend time with her family if I didn't want to.
So what did you do?
We got in a big argument, and I told her that if I wanted to stay with my sister, that I could. And she got angry at me and then started accusing me of things with the boys, of not caring for them the way I should, and that I loved my nephew more, and all this stuff that wasn't true. And we ended up getting a fight, and on Wednesday I couldn't handle anymore, and so when she was at work, I moved out.
When you moved out on Wednesday, how did you intend to repay the $1,000?
I was going to make payments from. I gave her a 2 weeks notice, and I was going to be able to get a job within that 2 weeks and pay her back. But 2 days later, she fired me. I tried to get unemployment, and she's fighting me on that. She's trying to do anything she can to ruin my life.
How are you supporting yourself?
Right now, I finally started to get unemployment from the state.
Go ahead. Let me hear what happened between Wednesday and Friday.
On Wednesday, I come home, and everything was moved out of the house.
And she quit?
And she quit. And she had my kids the whole day that she had done this.
Fine. She quit.
Yes,
Did she work for you on Thursday and Friday?
Yes. I didn't have anything else I could do at that point.
Okay. What did you say to her on Thursday and Friday?
I told her that I didn't understand why she would do something like she had done, move out of our home like that, quit. We had done everything to help her. It really hurt. It hurt to help someone so much and not.
Did you fire her on Friday?
I did not fire her. I rendered her services at that point. I
What
couldn't
happened?
trust her in my home.
So you fired her? You let her go? Tell me what you did.
I just came home and I gave her her money that she had worked and let her know that at that point on I did not want her watching my children.
Well, I would probably do the same thing. Somebody moved out of my house after almost a year working for me without notifying me, moved stuff out during the course of the day when you're supposed to be watching her children. I would probably terminate your services, too. In any event, you should have let her quit. She wouldn't have collected unemployment.
I'm fighting it.
Well,
she didn't appear
the
to
truth-
be a peer hearing last week, so.
The truth of the matter is, she quit on Wednesday, and she owes you the money. You took $60 out of
Yes, I did.
the first paycheck, the
Yes, I
last
did.
paycheck you gave her, so she owes you $940. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $940. That's all.
Why did those things mix up?
We let her into our home, let her borrow money, and then she just quit.
She begged me to stay with her. She told me to lie to unemployment.
She's not telling the truth, and actually that is another court appearance that she did not even appear to last week.
I worked my butt off for her. I took care of her kids. I loved them. And in return, I got fired and treated like this.
I just don't think that she wanted to pay us back or be held accountable for what she did.
I still couldn't believe that Robbie had left me without a word. I was so angry and devastated that he left without saying a word to me after 24 years of marriage. How could he do that to me? And yet, everyone told me that I should cut him loose and move on with my life. I know they are right, but it is still very hard for me to do so. In an attempt to move on with my life, I decided to reorganize the basement. It was Robbie's sanctuary when he wanted to be alone and play guitar. I thought all his stuff was gone, but then I found one box in the corner next to a bookshelf. Besides his school stuff, there were about a dozen notebooks in there. Apparently, he had kept several diaries over the years. Then I noticed a 3-ring binder where Robbie seemed to have collected all the scattered bits and pieces of different diaries into one place. The sight of Robbie's diary brought on a new surge of sadness, anger, and more tears over him leaving me. Finally pulling myself together, I wiped the tears from my cheeks and carried the folder upstairs to the living room. Settling down on the couch with my heart still completely broken, I began to read. Robbie Wilder's diary. I learned to play guitar when I was 4 years old. My grandfather, Seth Wilder, taught me and bought me my first guitar when I was 6. From then on, I felt like I had the guitar in my hands almost all the time. My grandfather also taught me to love country music. In fact, he taught me to appreciate all other kinds of music. Well, that's not really true. He had a hard time teaching me to appreciate rap. And I have to admit that I still haven't found a single rap song that stirs my soul. I find it kind of crude and raw. But I guess that's why they say, different strokes for different people. On the other hand, there's something about country music that really gets under my skin. I'm not saying I like all country music, but I find a lot more of what I like than what I don't like. I especially like many of the stars from the 50s through the 70s. Performers like George Jones, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, Loretta Lynn, Kenny Rogers, and especially Patsy Cline. I love just about everything these performers did. When I turned 12, my parents, Jason and Hannah, let my grandfather take me on weekend tours of churches within a 50-mile radius. Grandpa was part of a trio that played and sang gospel in a dozen or more churches once a month on a rotating basis. The group performed at 2 or 3 churches in a weekend. They were popular, and church attendance always increased when they knew Grandpa and his band would be there. I remember my dad's last words to me before we hit the road that first time. He knew how nervous I was. "Robbie, just let the music flow from your soul and you'll do great." And every day since then, when I play or sing, I try to let people feel how much music means to me. I can play guitar better than anyone, but I think my voice is mediocre. My grandfather never agreed with my assessment, but then he always thought everything I do is great. However, I can project a power in my songs that most singers can't. And over the years, I've developed the ability to instantly connect with an audience. Still, on that first trip, I was very nervous when we pulled up to the first church. I say church, but it was really just a huge chapel. It could fit about 40 people in it. However, I saw about 200 more folding chairs set up under the trees in front and to the side of the church. I also noticed speakers hanging from both sides of the church and from several trees. My stomach felt like it was jelly as I followed my grandfather down the aisle. My grandfather played acoustic guitar, Bert Zimmer played bass guitar, and Willie Stanton played banjo or fiddle. I usually played acoustic guitar, but I could also play bass or banjo. I wasn't as good as Bert or Willie, but I was damn close to it, and in 2 years I would surpass them. The church was very beautiful, with pews that had hand carvings on each end. Windows with stained glass windows in bright colors were visible everywhere. The altar was made of mahogany, with an elaborate cross carved in the center with angels at the corners. The huge crucifix hanging behind the altar was hand-carved. The expression carved on Christ's made you almost feel his pain. The pastor began the service, but I noticed it was abbreviated. We sang 2 hymns to complement his service, with me playing the banjo. After we started the first song, I relaxed a bit. All I had to do was play my instrument. However, after the church service was over, we got down to the actual performance, and I knew I had to sing a duet with my grandfather on the song Just a Closer Walk with Thee. When we got to that number, I started to get really nervous again, but my grandpa was so good with the church congregation that I thought they would clap even if I squealed like a hawk. In any case, the numbers preceding my duet went well, and the parishioners were quite appreciative. When I got up to sing my duet, I was still very nervous, but my grandfather's smile immediately put me at ease. When we finished, the parishioners cheered us on. It was the first time anyone outside of my family applauded my music. It was an elation like I had never experienced before. I was hooked. The pastor was very pleased. He said it was the largest audience his church had ever had. The donations made that day would help lead the church out of the crisis. The only money my grandfather's group ever took was a few dollars for gas and food if the women of the church didn't make anything. Before we left, the pastor asked for a date when my grandfather and his group would return. It was decided that we would return in 2 months. My grandfather liked to give an equal chance to every church that wanted to host his group. The next church was an hour away, and it was one of those mega churches. You know, the kind with thousands of parishioners. They had their own band that performed on Sundays, but today the band members were just going to be spectators. The church was more like an auditorium set up for a rock concert. The entire auditorium was set up to maximize the acoustics. Even the crucifix, made of metal, stood at an angle so as not to interfere with the sounds coming from the altar. The windows, though covered in glass, looked more like works of modern art. As nervous as I was at the first performance, I was terrified at this one. There would be several thousand spectators in the audience, including standing room only. The other church was small and intimate, but this one was just huge and intimidating. The sound system was amazing. It would put many recording studios to shame. What was even more intimidating was that I was supposed to do the solo from Amazing Grace. I was sure I was going to screw up big time. My stomach was churning with excitement. It didn't help that when we stopped for lunch, I had eaten a double cheeseburger, fries, and a chocolate shake. Now my stomach wasn't feeling good. I had terrible gas pains, but I didn't know what to do. However, I knew that no matter what, I had to keep going. With all my determination, I squeezed my ass tightly and tried to stand. I was given a small stool to sit on and placed a microphone right in front of me. The band had just started their first song when I couldn't hold back my gasps any longer. I let out this ear-pounding fart. And because the microphone was positioned in such a way that amplified my stomach explosion, the band stopped playing and there was silence in the church, and my face turned 16 different shades of red. I did the only thing that came to my mind. I leaned into the microphone and said, "The devil made me do it." The congregation erupted into a roar, and I saw my grandfather and his buddy Splinter. When things began to calm down, my grandfather looked at me and said, "Don't you have something else to say?" Grinning, I leaned back into the microphone again. "With God's grace and forgiveness, I won't do it again." The congregation erupted into roars again. My grandfather only grinned and started playing again. I never got nervous in front of an audience after that. Before I knew it, it was time for my solo. Even with what I thought was an average voice, I intended to put all my energy into this song. So I put all my energy into performing Amazing Grace. By the time the last notes faded, the congregation was up and cheering. The rest of the concert was a huge success. On the way home, I was teased at length about my stomach misadventures, but after dropping Bert and Willie off, my grandfather got serious. "Robbie, you had a great day today," he said proudly, "but I hope you don't allow yourself too much. I pray you never have the desire to become a famous singer. I've seen thousands of people chasing that dream. And many of them are much better than you, but almost all of them end up bitterly disappointed. Millions of people chase the same dream every year, and only a few succeed. Just love music for its beauty and you will never be disappointed." Between my dad and grandfather, the foundation of my philosophy on music and performing was born. I loved to play even if no one was around, but I felt doubly blessed if there was someone to share my music with. And yet, I continued to perform with my grandfather for another 3 years. However, then the band started to break up. First, Bert had a stroke and couldn't play anymore, and then Willie died of a sudden heart attack. In the end, it was just me and my grandfather. But a few more months went by and it was over. Grandpa's heart no longer lay toward it. Besides, I was in high school and discovered girls. Actually, I had discovered girls much earlier. But I never understood how the female mind works, and I don't think any guy ever will. Maybe it's my poor choices, but every time I've tried to get involved with a girl or woman, I've ended up on the losing end. When I was in 3rd grade, I had a crush on Rebecca Simons. She was a petite, blonde-haired girl who I thought was the most beautiful girl in the world. We became friends, and then she told me that if I gave her my special rock, she would be my girlfriend. It was actually just a crystal my mom bought me. But when the sun shone on it at a certain angle, it shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. However, 3 days later, Rebecca gave my rock to Jimmy Wheeler to be her boyfriend. When I asked Rebecca about my special stone, she only laughed at me. I never got it back. In 7th grade, Annie Adams convinced me that she would show me hers if I showed her mine. Being naturally curious, I readily agreed. Unfortunately, we got caught. It all went downhill, especially when Annie claimed it was my idea. And then, as now, they believed the girl. I was spanked for life, but I took comfort in seeing Annie. Still, I didn't understand why Annie had turned her back on me. When I asked her about it, she just smirked. Over the years, I'd grown suspicious of girls, so by junior year, I'd only had a dozen or so dates. I wasn't a bad guy, but I wasn't handsome. Then I met Sally Bertrand. She was only a sophomore, but very pretty. I had 3 dates with her before I asked her to prom. She was thrilled, and so was I. I ordered a tuxedo and bought tickets. 2 days before prom, Sally told me that her parents were making her go with Craig Wilkes. I knew that was bullshit. Craig was the captain of the basketball team and a junior who was supposed to be a senior. I had no doubt in my mind that she was switching places. I was crushed, but there was no way I was going to let Sally know about it. It was because of some advice my grandfather gave me. Shortly before my grandfather decided to stop performing, he asked me if I had a girlfriend. When I replied that I didn't, he chuckled and said that I should. He then explained that when I decided to date girls, there was a good chance that one or more of them would break my heart. And if that happens, he told me to never let a woman know that it bothers me and never beg her to come back. And most importantly, he told me that if someone breaks my heart, only time, distance, or another woman can fix it. So when Sally broke the news to me, I told her that it was no big deal. I would just ask someone else. I could tell by the look on her face that she was offended by my response. That alone gave me a little satisfaction. I immediately went and asked one of Sally's friends if she wanted to go to the prom with me. I actually asked her best friend, Carol Adamson, who wasn't as pretty as Sally but still cute. She was thrilled. Really, it wasn't a problem for her. For a sophomore to get a prom invitation from a senior was an instant status boost. Prom was pretty boring. I did a lot of dancing with Carol, but she was really annoying. Almost every sentence out of her mouth ended with, "well, you know." However, the evening did not go to waste. Craig managed to get drunk on whiskey that someone had smuggled into the dance. I found out later that he threw up on Sally while they were kissing. Karma can be a bitch, of course. I did a year of community college, but it wasn't for me. Even though I was in the music department, I felt like my professors didn't really understand music. They talked a lot about theory, but they had no soul. So I dropped out and got a job in a music store where I met and married Susie Carlucci. She was a flashy Italian woman from a big family. She pursued me until I fell hopelessly in love with her. For the next 6 months we dated, and I was thrilled when she agreed to marry me. Even though her mother and father hated me, her brothers thought I was cool. They often came to the clubs where I performed, and I liked working at the record store, but it certainly wasn't the highest paying job. Even combining my regular salary with what I made teaching people to play different instruments, I only brought in about $30,000 a year. However, on average I was making about $100 a week playing in various bars and cafes. In total, I was making a little over $35,000 a year. That was more than a lot of people made in Tifton, Georgia. Susie and I had been married for 3 years, and I thought everything was wonderful. I loved her to death, thought she loved me. But one day I came home, and Susie was sitting in the living room of our rented house with her suitcase by her side. "What's going on?" I asked. "I'm sorry, Robbie, but I'm leaving you," she said, looking at herself in the compact mirror. Grandpa's advice immediately worked. "Not that no one cares, but is there a specific reason?" "As soon as we get divorced, I'm going to marry George Menard," Susie said, looking at me contemptuously. "You have no ambition, and I want much more than you can give me." "Are you talking about that fat bastard who owns the car dealerships?" said I with a nasty smile. "You've been having fun with him?" Susie laughed. That laugh and the smirk on her face made me furious. Fortunately, I didn't lash out at my wife. However, I grabbed Susie and carried her to the front door, swung it open, and threw her onto the front lawn. I then threw her suitcase next to her. I then called her parents and told them where they could pick up the trash. When Susie's father answered the phone, I growled into the receiver. "Albert, your whore daughter has been having fun with George Menard. I just threw her out on the front lawn. Pick her up before the garbage men pick her up." Yes, Menard got her pregnant. Of course I made it all up. I didn't know anything about Susie's pregnancy at the time. I just put that phrase in because I knew Carlucci's were big Catholics and something like that would have been out of place. As it turned out, Susie was indeed pregnant. Nevertheless, the Carlucci family took her back, but they never really caught on to George. But it didn't matter. My heart was broken, and worse, there was nothing I could do about it. When people are wrong about you and you sit back and accept it is the worst feeling in the world. Oh, I got a little revenge because my next call was to Mrs. Menard to tell her what her husband and my wife were up to. Apparently, Susie was a bit quick to answer. Good old George was trying to hide a lot of money before handing his wife the divorce papers. Warned of this, Mrs. Menard, Carol, had swooped in on Mr. Menard with a whole horde of lawyers. She didn't take him out, but she got her pound of flesh from him. I learned this from my attorney during the divorce. However, that little piece of information did nothing to assuage my feelings. I was devastated by Susie's betrayal, and my soul was broken. But I didn't want anyone to know how much I was hurting, so I had to continue. Okay, I admit that I got drunk that night, but the next day I went to my parents and sobered up. I told them about what Susie had done, except for the pregnancy, which I didn't know about at the time. Instead, I said that Susie and I had become more like roommates. I don't know if they believed me, but they were very supportive. Susie had stabbed me in the back, and calling Mrs. Menard and Susie's parents was the only revenge I could get. It was pure agony for me to see Susie driving around in her new BMW convertible, sometimes with George and sometimes by herself, and Susie decided she was going to get revenge on me for throwing her out on the front lawn. She dragged George to some of my shows and made fun of me. At first I tried to ignore them, but eventually I got fed up, and one night I lashed out at them with words. I think I crossed the line when I asked Susie if she knew who the father of her unborn child was and whether he was white or black. That made them go away, but in the end, Susie still won because I got fired. The bar owner also refused to pay me for the night. Every day the situation got worse. Still, I didn't want anyone to know how much I was hurting. On Monday, after I literally kicked Susie out, I went back to work at the music store. Around noon, Susie's 3 brothers showed up, and I realized I was about to get the beating of my life. When I saw them come in the front door, I put brass knuckles on my right hand. They were probably going to beat the crap out of me, but I was going to set 1 or 2 of them up. But they didn't do anything. "Robbie, can we talk to you?" asked Frankie, the oldest, as they came in. I knew there was nowhere to run, so I nodded. "Look, we just want you to know that we don't hold a grudge against anyone," Frankie said, shuffling awkwardly in front of the cash register. "I mean, I wish you hadn't dumped her on the front lawn, considering she's pregnant, but we all understand. You were justified." Now I felt guilty for pouncing on Susie. Even though it wasn't my baby, I would feel terrible if anything happened to it. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But I didn't know Susie was pregnant." You told our father she was pregnant, Sal, the youngest, objected. I know I accused her of it, but I didn't really know, I replied. I was just messing with your father's head. The three brothers started giggling. Then Frankie spoke up. I wish I could have been present when Susie landed on her ass. That would have been priceless. Susie and Mom were screaming at us to beat the shit out of you. Daddy told them to shut their holes. He said you had every right to do what you did and more. Really? I was totally surprised that Susie's dad was standing up for me. I thought he hated me. Oh, he still hates you, Frankie confirmed. It's just that he's an old-fashioned Italian and can't stand cheating wives. Susie's caught his wrath and backlash for saying barbs to him 2 or 3 times now. I was happy that Susie's brothers were not angry with me. I liked them all very much, and I was really trying to get my life together in Tifton. But then my grandfather started to decline. He was put in a nursing home a month or 2 before Susie and I broke up. His mind began to weaken, and that made me very sad. Of course, I visited him as often as I could, and I told him the whole story of Susie and me breaking up. That day he was more or less in agreement with it. Robbie, he said with a sad smile, you need time, and you need to put distance between you and your ex-wife. We talked for about an hour before he got tired. Before I left, he reminded me to never chase the dream of becoming famous. He died the next day. I struggled for another 3 months, but when my grandfather died and the love of my life was now living with another man, I realized it was time to move on. My parents didn't want me to leave, but they understood why I had to. The thought of Tifton was daunting. I never thought about moving anywhere else until Susie left me and my grandfather died. However, Tifton is nice in that it's only a 3.5-hour drive to Atlanta on I-75. Also, after the divorce, I had a little over $5,000 left over. It was mostly money I had been secretly saving to take Susie on a vacation to Europe. Legally, I was supposed to split it with her, but I decided screw her. I said goodbye to my folks, wagged my finger at the George Menard dealership, and hit the road. When I got to Atlanta, it only took me 1 day to get settled. All I could afford was a room in College Park. As it turned out, the room was in a house owned by a nice black family named Monroe. Henry and Mabel Monroe had been happily married for almost 35 years. Both were in their 50s. Tyrone and Tabor were their 2 sons. Both lived at home and paid rent. Mabel and Henry questioned whether to rent the apartment to me, since I was white. In fact, Henry even said it would be strange for him to rent to a white man. Oh my God, I said, frantically groping my face. Am I white? Mabel was amused by this, and she put her hand on Henry's arm. He'll be all right. Give him a room. It was a little strange at first, but they treated me well. And after the cruel betrayal by my wife, it was nice to see the companionship of a loving family. Henry was a mailman and Mabel worked at the daycare center. Tyrone was a mechanic and Tabor was a real estate salesman. According to him, after a while, I realized that Tabor was actually a low-level drug dealer. His parents didn't know that he was selling small amounts of marijuana, crystal methamphetamine, and ecstasy. Oddly enough, I got along best with Tabor. No, I didn't do drugs. I preferred beer. What I liked about Tabor was his friendly humor. He was very funny and made everyone laugh. Years later, I was shocked to learn that he was shot and killed one night during a drug deal gone bad. I chose College Park because MARTA, the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, runs right through it. I can walk to the station and I don't have to drive into the city. Finding a parking spot is nearly impossible, and parking in downtown Atlanta costs a fortune. Once settled, I set about looking for a job. I must have applied to 40 or more different places. First, I went to every music store within a reasonable radius. None of them were hiring. Then I started with the classified ads looking for jobs. After interviewing, it turned out that either they weren't interested in me or I wasn't interested in them. After 2 weeks of unemployment, I began to despair. One afternoon, after being turned down for yet another job, I decided to stop by a bar near where I had my last interview. It was a Friday anyway, and I had no more interviews for that day. So I decided to grab a drink and a bite to eat. The exterior of this bar turned out to be very deceiving. Inside it was much larger than it appeared from the street. I expected to be in a relatively small room with a bar counter and a few chairs and tables dotted around. However, as soon as I passed through the double doors, the room expanded on both sides. Since the lighting was dim, I couldn't see everything. Along the right side stretched a long bar counter with about a dozen customers sitting at it. There were about 80 or 90 tables on the main floor. What immediately caught my eye was the small stage at the far end of the hall. From the doorway, I could see instruments standing on several stools in the center of the stage. It looked like there were live performances being held here, and that piqued my interest. But first I wanted to grab a bite to eat and a beer. I sank into a seat 3 seats away from the nearest customer and waited for someone to pay attention to me. I recognized from a used coaster on the bar that the establishment was called Big Carl's. And from the looks of it, it does indeed host live entertainment. Although there weren't many customers, there were 3 people working behind the bar. 2 of them were young men, and the other was a very attractive girl. One of the guys was about 6 feet tall with brown hair. There was a sense of femininity about him. Nevertheless, he smiled a lot and seemed pleasant enough. The other was a couple inches shorter, had black hair, and was talking to his partner about the blue streak. The girl appeared even prettier when I got a better look at her. She had dark blonde hair cut in a pageboy style. She had a button nose and a slim but cute figure. If she'd had pointed ears, I'd have mistaken her for an elf. Right now, she looked like an angry elf. Eventually, the girl walked over and threw a new coaster on the bar in front of me. "What would you like? Can I get something to eat?" I asked. She snorted, then sighed. "Yeah, I guess so. What do you want? Can I have a hamburger and fries? I'd also like a bottle, of course, if you have it. If not, I'll take any domestic beer." "A hamburger would take at least 20 minutes, she snapped back. "They're just about to break out the grill. Why don't you order a sandwich?" The words about the sandwich sounded more like an order than a question. I was having a bad day, and her attitude was annoying me. I didn't need to go anywhere, so screw it. I wanted a hamburger. "I can wait." "I want a hamburger," I said with a smile. After she not so carefully placed the bottle of beer in front of me, she turned away with annoyance. As she walked away, I couldn't help but wonder who had pooped in her crispy cutlets this morning. I continued to watch as she left my order and headed into the back room and up the stairs, which I hadn't noticed when I walked in. The other 2 guys disappeared into the kitchen. I didn't know if they had some business there or if they were just trying to stay out of sight of the angry elf. Having performed in many bars, I was somewhat taken aback by her behavior. She didn't just seem agitated, she seemed completely pissed off. I had no idea what was bothering her, but I sure as hell wasn't going to put up with it if she gave me any more of her shit. I sipped my beer for a few minutes while I waited for my food, and I finally got bored. So I got up and wandered around the hall. I estimated that this place could hold a couple hundred people if there were tables and chairs, but then I saw a sign that said that seating was limited to 275. Stopping in front of the stage, I estimated that it was an elevated platform 20 by 20 feet in size. On the stage stood a bass guitar, banjo, synthesizer, and kazoo. The synthesizer wasn't a top-of-the-line model, but it still had to cost at least $1,800. Oddly, they didn't have an acoustic guitar. I would find out the reason for that in just a couple minutes. "Damn it, Carl, Ty, just get up and leave." I heard the voice of a girl with brown hair. I looked up and saw a short, dense man coming down the stairs with the girl trailing behind him. The man, whose name I guessed it was Carl, looked to be about 50 or 60 years old. He had thin gray hair, a pot belly, and a snub nose. The elf-like woman looked like she was ready to explode. "It's not my problem, Tanya," Carl said in an indifferent voice. "If you can't replace him in the next hour, I'll find another group. Besides, you guys aren't going to set the world on fire, but even if you can't find a replacement, I'll let you stay and work the bar until the new group gets settled in." "Shit," said Tanya and left for the kitchen. Then I heard yelling, and all 3 of us went outside arguing. The point of the argument was to replace Ty with someone who plays acoustic guitar. Since I can play any guitar, I thought this was a golden opportunity. "Excuse me," I interrupted their argument, but I couldn't help overhearing that you need an acoustic guitarist. "Of course you do," Tanya snapped back. "I can play any guitar," I said with a smile. Tanya only frowned and turned to her companions. "We need to find someone permanent or we're going to be totally screwed." The taller of the men looked at Tanya and then at me. "Do you really know how to play guitar?" "Yes," I replied enthusiastically. "What about songs?" "We're mostly a cover band, leaning more towards pop and country music from the 60s and 70s. Do you know any Beatles, Johnny Mathis, Dolly Parton, John Denver, Patsy Cline, or Glenn Campbell songs?" "Yeah, I know pretty much all of their songs," I lied. I knew all the songs by the Beatles, John Denver, Dolly Parton, and Loretta Lynn. I used many of them when I performed at Tifton. However, I had little knowledge of Johnny Mathis and only knew one song, Rhinestone Cowboy, by Glenn Campbell. He wasn't one of my favorites. But when it came to Patsy Cline, I knew all of her major hits. Patsy Cline was my all-time favorite country singer. I usually ended my performances with one of her lesser-known hits, True Love. I don't know why, but Patsy Cline's rendition of this song always drew a standing ovation. As for knowing the songs, I figured anything I didn't know I could learn quickly. "Simon, we're wasting time," Tanya complained. "We need to call the talent agency and see if they can find us someone for tonight." Said that we should spend 5 or 10 minutes to see if this guy can do what he says. The guy objected, then turned to the other man.